Welcome to the Phosphenes Podcast. I'm your host, Krista, and joining me tonight is Nick Williams, a man who moved away from Niagara Falls back in the year 2000, all the way across the country, chasing that Canadian dream. Nick, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, or us.
And who have we got there?
That's Gizmo. He's
Oh, hi,
trying to get in the way.
Gizmo. Very
Over there,
cute.
bud.
The first dog on the show. So, Nick, tell me a little bit about your story. Short version, growing up, what life was like.
Yeah, I actually grew up in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay.
And then when I was out of high school, I went to university there. And then I went to a college there. And then I moved to Ontario, to Niagara Falls.
And what made you want to do that move?
Something to do. Had to try
Okay.
something different. Just Nova Scotia's pretty slow paced. Go try something, right? And I knew some people out there, a buddy of mine from school. He's like, well, come on out here. Sure, I'll do that. So I went out there and I was working the next day. So it worked out.
And what was it that you went to university for?
Originally, I went for information technology, so IT degree.
I could barely use my laptop, so any
That's
of that
fair.
stuff is a different world for me. But that's very cool. Now, is that what you ended up working in when you went to Ontario?
Yeah, in Ontario, I did, yes. I was building servers, networks, computers.
Kind of brought you on the next stage of your journey.
I ended up with a girl that lived in New York, actually. So I ended up down there for a while.
Oh,
And like just upstate New York, right? So
okay.
not far across the border. So I crossed the border basically daily. And then after that, I went to actually another university. It's called the University of Base. It was Mobile Dynamics, it's called. And that's in Toronto. So I went up there and did that. Basically, home automation, fancy TVs on the wall, make your blinds close when you turn the lights off, that kind of stuff, right?
Right, okay.
So I did that for a bit, and it was because of that actually that I ended up out here
Okay.
because there was a guy, he called me, this was in like '04, '05 back in the day, offered me a job and I kind of hung up. He's like, hey, do you want to go to work? And I just hung up. I was like, I just got home, click. Right? Like he called back the next day, you want to go to work? He's like, come up here. I'm in on Alberta. I'm like, okay, cool. Where? And he's like, Grande Prairie. Never heard of it, dude. And he's like, come on up for the weekend. So I did that and it seemed okay. So I went back there, got everything organized, and a couple weeks later, I was living in Grande Prairie.
And that was 20 years ago. That's a really big
Just
jump to
over.
make. And my impression at first was maybe that you came over like so many other people do from the East Coast for the oil field. And, that wasn't actually what brought you over, which is very
No.
interesting.
No, I came actually to work at basically a stereo shop, right?
The oil industry and all the other natural resources that are here, they do help fund all of those secondary industries.
100%.
People have money to put nice stereos in their vehicles and jack up
That's
their
right.
trucks and
That's right. Back there, someone spends 500 bucks on their stereo and they're all impressed. Here, it's like, well, here's 50 grand. What can you make that's cool? All
wow.
right.
That income disparity, it's pretty equal to this day between the East Coast and Alberta as to what it was 20 years ago.
I feel like it is, yeah.
What keeps people in Nova Scotia then? Family, friends?
A lot of it is you grew up there and don't know any different, and it's slow paced. You don't feel like you have to do anything crazy, so you just kind of go with it, right? And
You're not keeping up with the Joneses because your friends and family aren't going out and buying mega
that's right.
mansions and big fancy trucks. Everyone's just kind of, comfortable at that level that they're living at.
Everyone's driving their little Civic for 40 years, right? They don't have to have a
Right.
brand new truck every year. So you don't care that you have a regular job and do your thing, right?
I've never been to Nova Scotia. I do really want to go. I honestly think it's just criminal how expensive it can be to fly across our own country because it's so hard when you only get a certain amount of vacation a year. You only have so much money to go on a trip and it's like, well, I could go to Mexico or I could
Yeah,
spend, more money to go to Nova Scotia, but we should be able to see our own country a lot more
you
than we
would
do.
think. But it's cheaper to go to Mexico when you know for sure the weather's going to be good.
Exactly. And you just don't know. You guys are off the Atlantic. Now, the town that you grew up in, was it a village? Was it one of the bigger cities on Nova Scotia?
It's bigger. Like you've heard of Halifax?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so it's all Halifax now because
Oh,
Dartmouth is across the bridge and then Bedford's down like kind of it's like a basin, right? So yeah, so you've got your Halifax on one side, Dartmouth on the other, and then the end of it is Bedford.
how did you find moving away and being so far away from your friends and family? How often are you able to go back and visit, or have you gone back?
I've gone back like twice. Yeah, I don't go back a whole bunch. I drove back one time,
What was your favorite part of the drive?
getting out and going, oh look, I'm back home when I got here. There's nothing about the drive that's fun because I was trying to I was out here and already working and I had to get back to work.
Right.
So like I want to do it. I want to take the kids and just go across the country because there's 1,000 places you can stop, but I didn't
Yeah.
have time for any of that. So
Right.
it was just like hammer down, let's go, get there. It was like 2.5 days. There was no sleeping. I stopped for food and fuel. That's it.
I don't want to get too political, but I thought it'd be interesting to get your perspective as somebody that grew up on the East Coast, but you've also been living in Alberta for 20 years, the Separatist movement. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think of it, but you know what? If I wanted to suck money out of Alberta, I could stay there. But I'd rather just fend for myself, come out here and make my own money. So it's
Okay.
like, you know what? Why should we pay for all the East? If they want to be lazy, that's fine. Do it. I was back there too. But I decided that I'm not that lazy. I came out here. Yeah, I understand why Alberta wants to leave because they've been footing the bill the whole time, right?
It's complicated though, right? It's like, I'm from BC, so
Right.
we're looking at this and being like, what are we just gonna cut us off from the rest of the country, right? It's, not everybody can pick up and come to Alberta to work is the other thing, right? So the equalization payments, tough, right? I know Alberta, they feel like it's not fair, but they have all the resources.
Right.
How do we not do a little bit of wealth sharing? You think about people that are, people that have retired and have gone back to those provinces to live, kind of creates room for younger, more dynamic people that can work to come in here because we do only have so much space. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know that it's super helpful at the time that we're in right now, just with all the other stuff that's going on. But I understand why Alberta is upset, and I feel like this is kind of what they've thought is the best platform to express that.
I mean, I know they talk about a lot about like, well, if you leave and your own country, you're landlocked. No, we're not. We're landlocked now. So international law says you can't landlock a country. Like, look at Europe. There's lots of places that theoretically are landlocked,
Yeah.
but they all have access to ports. We can't send anything out east. Can't run a pipeline, can't do anything because they shut it down. But you know what? International law will say we have to have water access both sides if we become our own country.
And we do already have the Trans Mountain Pipeline. That's not going to just get shut off.
They're bringing in oil every day. I can't remember how much it is. It's something stupid like 20,000 barrels from overseas. But we have that here. We could be sending it there.
I do agree that we should have an Energy East pipeline. I mean,
Yeah.
a big pipeline like that would create so many jobs for people, the whole stretch of it, the whole time we were building it. And I worked on the Trans Mountain Pipeline myself, and it was awesome. It was a great job, really high environmental standards, really high safety standards.
Maybe I don't know if separation is going to happen or anything, but maybe that's enough to make Canada go, oh, maybe they are serious. They will
Yeah.
take off on us. Maybe we should think about it and work with them. And then maybe Alberta says, if you let us do some things to make money, because you're taking all of our money now. But if you make it easy for us to make money, like let us run a pipeline through and all those things, and they support that out there, maybe we have less issues sending you money for equalization.
I've heard talk of in Hudson's Bay, because with the ice melting and climate change happening, we're going to have shipping lanes opening
Yep,
up in the Arctic that haven't been accessible for till now. So,
that's right. I heard about that. And that's what they were saying makes Canada so powerful because that's the quickest way now, the quickest route,
yes.
and we'll basically control that.
Yeah, for now. But I think we're upgrading some of our ice breaking ships and
Yep.
things like that, so we hopefully can maintain that. But we need to use it. And I mean, if Manitoba and that area is down to expand, which it sounds
Mhm.
like they are, can we just not build a pipeline to there instead of having to go all the way to the East Coast? I just really love Canada, and I just don't think that division is the answer. I've lived in Alberta for years previously. I'm now back here for work. I've got lots of friends that are Albertans, and they feel quite strongly about this. And I thought it was terrible when Quebec kept threatening to separate. It's like at the end of the day, you're still Canadian and do have, I think some fairly serious outside threats happening right now. We have all the natural resources that other countries need or want. And Danielle Smith and Mark Carney, they have had talks. They need to have some more, sit down at the table and be like, okay, this is what's going to put this to rest,
Yeah.
and then just move forward with things that are going to create jobs, create wealth, and just make Canada overall stronger, not just Alberta.
And I think that would, because they're not going to send people from Alberta to build the whole thing, because you got to start both ends and in the middle, right? So
Exactly.
now you got jobs everywhere.
They're going to need camp laborers. They're going to need housekeepers. They're going to need cooks. They're going to need drivers,
Yep.
medics, welders.
Medics, welders, everything.
it is interesting being back in Alberta working in the oil field and the amount of Newfies and Nova Scotians that you run into out here. Growing up, is there just kind of like this myth almost of like, the wealth that you can go get in Alberta?
Like when I grew up, I knew, well, we had people, they had moved out here actually down by Edmonton, and they came back, and I was actually like building a Jeep in the garage. And he's like, oh, yeah, just weld this and that. I'm like, we don't do that here. We run screws through things because we don't know how to do that. And he's like, oh, you got to come out there and learn this stuff, right?
Right.
And like basically they came back, and you could tell that they were making money, right?
Yeah.
So when I got told to come out here, I was like, I've heard of that place actually, not specifically Grande Prairie, but I was like,
Right.
yeah, I know it's like in Alberta. I'll give that a run. Why not?
You'd seen other people that had gone and suddenly upgraded to a different
Yeah.
standard of living. Yeah, okay.
They live there in an apartment. They come out here a year later, they come back to visit. They got a $700,000 house there, a couple brand new trucks. They don't even care. It's like, okay, yeah, that's not a terrible situation you got,
Yeah, that really
right?
is the Albertan dream, though. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many people that do come here from other provinces just because of the opportunities that are here and the money that can be made. It's
Yep.
wonderful, right? And I'm really thankful to be able to come and work over here when I need to from BC. And I thought I was going to be in Alberta forever at one point and didn't end up happening. I did end up wanting to be closer to my family for one. My mom's getting older
Right.
and I missed some of the lakes and mountains because northern Alberta does have really nice lakes, but like kind of Edmonton down, which is the area that I was living, you're trying pretty hard to find a
You
decent
have to
lake.
basically get into BC to get into that. Like you're right at the border.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like over
I
by
think
Jasper, because you're close to there right now.
yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's not too far and that's fine, but that puts you back in BC again right away. So,
Exactly. I remember when I was living in more southern Alberta, I think the nicest decent lake for the that you actually want to like swim in and stuff was Sylvan Lake, which is man-made.
yep.
And just a zoo in the summer. And I'd be thinking of, okay, I could be home and I could go to one of like 20 beautiful lakes and there would be nobody there.
Yeah.
But it is awesome. I don't mind being back here and the work is awesome and the
Yeah.
people are really good. So
I think it's just the mentality of people that aren't here. I think they're just sour that they're not maybe making the same money. So they're like, oh, those guys are jerks. And they're just gonna try to run them through the mud. And it's like, if you go up there, they're actually friendly. They want to help you because they
yes.
want you to work so that you're in a good mood, so that everyone's getting along.
And
It's
a
totally
lot
different.
of really hardworking people here, that is for
Yeah.
sure. We're going to start wrapping this up. Before we do, is there any piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's maybe in their early 20s out on the East Coast listening to this?
Well, if they're out there and they'd like to come here, get your class one before you come here and work somewhere there for a couple of years. Don't care what it is. You need verifiable class one experience to be able to get insured most places here.
That's a really good piece of advice. Like short-term sacrifice, not making as
Yeah.
much money, maybe, having to stay there for a little bit longer, but set yourself up for success. Well, wonderful, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
No worries. Thanks for having us.
And to anyone out there that's thinking of coming to Alberta, chasing the dream, if you have some experience, you're willing to learn and work hard, listen to Nick's advice and lay that groundwork before you make the jump. And we'll see you next time on Phosphenes.